Welcome to Britain's Got News,
your #1 TV series.
where countries participate to see who had the best revolution.
I'm Stacy.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Luna.
Let's begin. First revolution, please step onto the stage.
Buongiorno judges, I am Italy.
Where was your revolution located?
In Sardinia.
What was the cause of your revolution?
The first major uprising in Palermo, Sicily was an uprising mainly against the poor governors of the ruling Ferdinand II. As you can see, the general discontent caused by the food shortages, economic depression, and the poor governors was a major factor in causing the revolution.
What are some events or outcomes that are happening now?
Uprising also erupted in the Italian states. Nationalists wanted to end Habsburg domination and set up a constitutional government. From Venice in the north to Naples in the south, Italians set up independent republics. Revolutionaries even expelled the Pope from Rome and installed a nationalist government. Before long, the forces of reaction surged back. Austrian troops ousted the new government in northern Italy. A French army restored the Pope to power in Rome. In Naples, local rulers canceled the reform they reluctantly accepted. Go Italy!
Thank you. You did fabulous. Hope to see you on the stage again.
Next revolution is France. Please go onto stage.
Bonjour, I am France.
Good morning. What was the cause for your revolution?
People lost their jobs, food prices rose, and people started accusing the government of corruption.
What are some events or outcomes that are happening now?
When Louis XVIII died in 1824, his younger brother, Charles X, inherited the throne. Charles, a strong believer in absolutism, rejected the very idea of the charter. In July 1830, he suspended the legislature, limited the right to vote, and restricted the press. Liberals and radicals responded forcefully to the king's challenge. In Paris, angry citizens threw up barricades across the narrow streets. From behind them, they fired on the soldiers and pelted them with stones and roof tiles. Within days, rebels controlled Paris. The revolutionary tricolor flew from the towers of Notre Dame Cathedral. A frightened Charles X abdicated and fled to England. With the king gone, radicals wanted to set up a republic. Moderate liberals, however, insisted on a constitutional monarchy and chose Louis Philippe as king. Louis Philippe was a cousin of Charles X and in his youth had supported the Revolution of 1789.
Okay, yeah, whatever. We'll call you if anything.
At this moment, it's Prussia's turn.
Guten Morgen, I am Prussia.
Hello. What was the cause for your revolution?
Rioting began in Berlin and our army tried to suppress the revolution, but failed.
What are some events or outcomes that are happening now?
Failed. In the German states, university students demanded national unity and liberal reforms. Economic hard times and a potato famine brought peasants and workers into the struggle. In Prussia, liberals forced King Frederick William VI to agree to a constitution written by an elected assembly. Within a year, he dissolved the assembly. Throughout 1848, delegates from German states met in the Frankfurt Assembly. Divisions soon emerged over whether Germany should be a republic or a monarchy, or whether to include Austria in the United German State.
Very well. You made a few mistakes, but overall it was great. We'll see you later.
Not least, we have Britain.
Cheerio, I'm Britain. A pleasure to meet your acquaintance.
Aren't you handsome? What was the cause for your revolution?
Cons for Britain include bad harvests and economic depression, as well as unemployment and liberalism. The pros are as follows. Favorable climate for industrialization. Britain had financial institutions in place, such as central banks, to finance new factories.
What are some events or outcomes that are happening now?
In 1839, the working class presented to Parliament a charter of political reforms. Conservatives in Britain saw reform as antagonistic to the economic ideology of laissez-faire. Parliament rejected the reforms and riots followed in the city, such as Glasgow, Newcastle, Birmingham, and in Wales. The kingdom cities were increased in population with people together with hardly any park or open spaces. With many houses for common people built wall to wall without yards, often with 6 to 10 people living in one room, without sewer pipes or running water. With water source, common people in the cities became indeed of unwashed. Some people not bathing at all and adjusting to the smell. A British reformer, Edwin Chadwick, championed the idea of a program of iron pipes carrying clean water into homes and sewage, away from homes. They stood by their attachment to laissez-faire economics, their lack of imagination, and their opposition to tax and spend politics.
Thank you very much.
Now we're reporting from the Congress of Vienna. The Congress of Vienna was a meeting of ambassadors of European states, hosted by Austrian statesman Clement von Metternich, and held in Vienna from November 1814 to June 1815, even though the delegates since arriving had begun to negotiate by later September 1814. The objective of the Congress was to provide a long-term peace plan for Europe by settling critical issues arising from the French Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars. The goal wasn't simply to restore all boundaries, but to resize the main powers so they could. The outbreak of fighting that was triggered by Napoleon's dramatic return from exile and resumption of power in France during the 100 Days of March to July 1815. Negotiations still continue. The Congress' final act was signed 9 days before his final defeat at Waterloo on June 18, 1815. Technically, the Congress of Vienna was not properly a Congress. Most of the discussions occurred in informal face-to-face sessions among the great powers of Austria, Britain, France, Russia, and sometimes Prussia, with limited or no participation by other delegates. The Congress was the first occasion in history where, on a continental scale, national representatives came together to formulate treaties instead of relying mostly on messages among the several capitals. Conservative restoration was a program by the conservative statesman Metternich that was put to retain the revolution and revolutionary forces by restoring the old orders of monarchies. The goal of the conservatives was to maintain peace and stability in Europe. They returned the legitimate monarchs to their thrones, where previously Napoleon put his brothers and relatives on the throne to gain more control. The Congress has often been criticized for causing the subsequent suppression of the emerging national and liberal movement, and it has been seen as a reactionary movement for the benefit of traditional monarchs. However, others praised it for having created relatively long-term stability and peaceful conditions in most of Europe.
And now we are going to commercial before finding out who our winner is. Introducing telegraph communication. Welcoming the newest technology, the communication telegraph. This device is perfect for birthdays, betrothals, or any other holiday celebrated. Tired of traveling for hours? Then get the telegraph. Everything will be at the tip of your fingers whenever. Don't wait, get yours now.
Good afternoon, my name is Monica, reporting live from the field covering political ideologies, romanticism, and socialism. Liberalism is a political and moral philosophy based on liberty, consent of the governed, and equality before the law. Romanticism was an artistic, literary, musical, and intellectual movement that originated in Europe toward the end of the 18th century. Romanticism was characterized by an emphasis on emotion and individualism, as well as glorification of the past and nature, preferring the medieval rather than the classical. Socialism is a populist economic and political system based on public ownership of the means of production. The original utopian societies condemned liberal individualism for failing to address social concerns during the Industrial Revolution, including poverty, social oppression, and gross inequalities in wealth, viewing that liberal individualism as degenerating society into supporting selfish egoism that harm community life through promoting a society based on competition. Now back to the show.
After a long discussion, the judges finally came to a verdict.
And the winner is... Britain!
Really? I can't believe it! God save the Queen!
Great Britain, it was more than a Chartist demonstration and Republican agitation in Ireland. In Belgium, the Netherlands, and Denmark, it was peaceful reforms of existing institutions, but democratic insurrections broke out in the capitals of the three great monarchies, Paris, Vienna, and Berlin, where the governments, rendered powerless by their fear of the revolution, did little to defend themselves. The revolution was successful in France alone. The Second Republic and universal manhood suffrage were established, but the quarrel between the supporters of the République démocratique and the partisans of the République démocratique et sociale culminated in a workers' insurrection in June 1848.
In Austria, where the new ministers promised to grant constitutions, the monarchy stood against the storm. And in Prussia, King Frederick William, who led the movement for the unification of Germany, picked up black, red, and gold flag that had become the symbol of German unity. The German governments agreed to the convocation of 3 constituent assemblies at Berlin, Vienna, and Frankfurt, which democratic constitutions were to be drafted to Prussia, Austria, and Germany.
In Italy, at first, the revolution only took the form of a nationalist rising against Austria, led by the King of Sardinia, under the Italian tricolor, the white, red, and green. The Republic was proclaimed in 1849, and then only in Rome and Tuscany. Within the Austrian Empire, the nationality subjected to the German government of Vienna, ready for a national government, and Hungary succeeded in organizing itself on an autonomous basis.
The upheaval seemed to indicate a redistribution of territories of Europe. In the name of provincial government in France, Alphonse de Lamartine declared that the treaties of 1815 were no longer valid in the eyes of the French Republic. But he added that he accepted the territorial delimitations affected by those treaties. France did not lend its support to the revolutionaries in Europe.
The Restoration had commenced even before the revolution was over, and it was accomplished by the armies that had remained faithful to the respective governments. Military repression was first employed in Paris by Louis-Eugène Cavaignac against the insurgents in June, and by Alfred Prince von Win on June 17 against the Czech in Prague, and later by the Austrian army in Lombardy and Vienna, then in Berlin in December, and in 1849 by the Prussian army in Saxony and Baden. Order was restored in Rome only by French intervention, and in Hungary with the help of the Russian army. The King of Prussia, having refused the title of emperor offered to him by the Frankfurt Assembly, to achieve the unity of Germany by a union between the German princes. Austria and Russia compelled him to abandon his design by the Convention of Olmütz in 1850. The immediate result of the reaction became manifested in the withdrawal of liberal democratic or nationalist concessions, which had been made during the Revolution: universal manhood suffrage, liberty of the press and assembly. Absolute monarchy was re-established in Germany, Austria, and Italy, and the governments, in alliance with the middle classes and the clergy, who were terrified by the socialist proposals, strengthened the police forces and organized the persecution of the popular press and associations that paralyzed political life.
In France, the reaction led to the coup d'etat against the assembly on the part of Prince Louis Napoleon on December 2nd, 1851, and the re-establishment of the hereditary empire under Napoleon III in 1852. Thank you so much for watching. Don't miss an episode of Britain's Got News.
Hard hat area.
Yeah, I don't get what that means.
That means this. It means that you can't enter without a hard hat, or else your head will bust open. When you press it, it's gonna zoom in. So you press it. It's already going. Okay. So this is the zoom. Try it. Move it. And this is the focus. So here, if you like move it backwards, this T.
Butternut.
Butternut. Welcome to Britain's Take.
Take one.
You gonna hit me with that pen, girl. Take one.
Bro, go down.
Oh my god.
You can't say bro go down. Like you can go down too.
It's okay, I'll just cut the scenes.
Okay, start again.
We actually need the one.
Who spelled Stassi? Stacy, not Stassi.
As you can see, general discontent. You both are laughing.
I'm not laughing at you! I was eating!
You both are okay. When you turn it on, just go.
Just go to the back of the room.
I have to move it. It's fine. What did it say in the beginning?